All right, good morning. Go ahead and open up to John chapter 4 if you're not already there. That'll be our study text for this morning. John chapter 4. You know, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of sickness right now. Not just because of COVID, but just in general. You know, this past week I was thinking about the difference that 6 months can make. I mean, 6 months ago, April 11th, we were all just about as terrified as we've ever been, right? And all I could think about, so Mom is not the best of health, of course, and she called me one day around this time 6 months ago, and I heard a ding behind her. And I said, Mom, where are you? She said, I'm at the gas station down the road. And I said, Mom, do you realize this is a pandemic, this is serious, we were all terrified. You're at a gas station. Go home now. What do you need from the gas station? She said, I needed something to drink. And I said, okay, I will bring you something to drink. Go home, right? We have spent the last 6 months, the last 7 months, thinking about the horrors, but there's a lot of people who have actually seen what it really looks like. And a lot of people outside of the virus have started thinking about just, what it really looks like to see a family member struggle with severe health problems. It's even worse, I think. I mean, I've never experienced it, but it's got to be even worse to deal with some sort of severe health problem when it's your child and you're watching your child basically waste away into nothing. That's what happens in John 4. This man, we read it at the beginning of the worship service, but this man is dealing with his son who is so ill now that basically everyone knows that he's going to pass away. It brings me, turn to Romans chapter 8 real quick. We'll get to John 4 here in just a minute, but I want to read a passage in the book of Romans real quick because I think it's important to realize the mindset of the man that we're going to talk about. Because his mindset's like a lot of us when we're faced with some situation like this, okay? So, Romans chapter 8, verse 19. For the creation, now that word is Christus, it always refers to mankind, okay? So, the creation, mankind waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God, for the creation that was subjected to futility. Mankind was subjected to futility not willingly, but because of him who subjected it. Who was that? Adam and Eve. In hope that the creation itself, mankind, will be set free from its bondage to corruption and to obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole mankind, whole creation, has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the mankind, but we ourselves. It's not just... there's a difference of seeing, Sarah McLachlan on TV talking about the horrors in some third world country on the other side of the planet that you'll never pay attention to and you'll never know those people and so forth, right? It's different when it's over there. But what he's saying is we ourselves are also seeing this. We have the first fruits of the Spirit. We are Christians and we're looking out at the world and we're saying we can't do anything. We want to help, but we can't help because we don't know what to do. Groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. So essentially, that's where we were 6 months ago. We were looking out, we were saying, I wish I could do something, but I just don't know what to do. I don't want to go out and try to volunteer somewhere because what if I get it and then I take it to my family and then one of my family members passes away from this? What happens when it starts hitting our church? Listen, as a church, Warm Springs Road, we've made it through COVID-19 fairly uneventfully. We've had a few people that are connected or parts of our church who have had the virus, but I mean, I can put you in touch with congregations where a good percentage of their church has passed away because of the virus, right? And we were looking out and we were saying, I wish we could help, but I just don't know how to help. That's the same place that the man in John 4 is. This nobleman, he's looking at his son, and he's saying, I don't know what to do. I wish I could help, but I can't. So, John 4 verse 46. Jesus came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. In the Capernaum, there was an official whose son was ill. When the man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went to him, asked him to come down to heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The official said to him, Sir, come down before my son dies. Jesus said to him, Go, your son will live. Then the man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. As he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he had began to get better, and they said to him, Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him. The father knew that this was the same hour that Jesus said to him, Your son will live. And he himself believed, and all his household, that this was now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. All right, so let's break this passage down just verse by verse by verse, okay? Verse 46. Jesus comes from Cana to Galilee, or from Cana in Galilee to now Judea. Verse 47. And then there's a guy at Capernaum who is an official. Now pause for just a second. In order to become an official, here's the kind of man we're talking about, okay? He definitely has money, because at the end of the passage it talks about him and his household, and it talks about his servants coming and finding him, which means that he would have had enough servants to warrant, that kind of language. But also, in order to become a ruler or an official, this man is a Roman. He probably has some time in the Roman army. He has a lot of money, he has a lot of prestige, and he has a lot of pull in his area. He's kind of the big man on campus in Capernaum, as it were. This man has now realized that even though he has all of this stuff, and all of this power, and all of this prestige, there's one thing that he can't fix. I mean, think about this, okay? This passage, what we're going to talk about this morning is really faith. And when we come to faith, and how we come to faith, and why we come to faith, and what that does in the preceding moments after we realize who Jesus is and so forth. And this man has now realized that everything he has, the one thing that he needs, he doesn't have. So verse 47, he hears that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee. He went to him. Now, Capernaum to Galilee is 18 miles. In fact, later on we're going to notice that it takes him about a day to get there. Because when his servants come back, he asks them when he got better, and they say, yesterday about the 7th hour, which is about 1 p.m. Okay? So it takes him, relatively speaking, at least 16 hours to get home or so forth. Because, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to walk super fast. Plus you've got to walk a different road, and Capernaum to Galilee, as the crow flies, is 18 miles, but obviously it took him a good long while to get home. And he drops everything. A man who is very important, who people are going to want to listen to him, people are going to want to pay attention to him. He drops everything to go. That's how important this was to him. There is absolutely no indication, however, that God chose this sickness. Just because God uses the sickness does not mean that God made or chose or caused the sickness. So this man he hears that Jesus is 18 miles away, and he drops everything and he goes. And he doesn't worry about who caused the sickness or why it happened or anything else. A lot of times people want to ask, why has God allowed this to happen to me? Why is God allowing... Listen, in the end game, it doesn't really matter. You never have the people who are struggling with the sickness after the fact thinking, well, I don't love God because He made me go through that. It's the family members who saw the struggle, or it's the person who's in the struggle. But after it's over, we're not worried about that anymore as much, right? Well, that's where this guy is. He's not worried about who caused it. He just knows that Jesus will have the solution, and so he's going to go and he's going to get there. Listen, let me ask you a question. How many times have people figured out that they need something more than the hustle and bustle of life because of something grabs their attention? We spent months at home, and all of us started realizing that everything that we were paying attention to before was really not that important. Right? All right, verse number 47. Verse 48, sorry. So Jesus said to him, unless you see the signs and wonders, you will not believe. There are two types of people that come to Jesus. There are two types of ways that people come to Jesus. There is the persuasion way, and there is the power way. Persuasion looks like this. A college student is approached by his friend to go to a Bible study. And in that Bible study, he realizes that the group that he's studying with believes in very different ways than he has to believe. And they start saying phrases like authority and restoration, and they start teaching concepts and studying concepts that are so foreign to him that he doesn't even understand up from down anymore. And he starts hearing them talk about different things, specifically about, say, worship. And he's grown up playing instruments in worship and so forth, and he starts asking questions, and they start paying attention, and they start answering questions, and he asks more questions, they start answering more questions, and they start going back and forth, and eventually, y'all get that I'm telling you my story, right? Eventually, he gets down to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And we've talked about instruments, we've talked about all these things, and now we're talking about miraculous powers. And I was raised to think that they were still happening today, and people were able to do all the things that they did in Jesus' day and the apostles' day. And then we come to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where it says, that which is perfect is come. And so I left that Bible study, and I spent the next week writing a 17-page document on the word perfect. And I showed how mankind can become perfect, because 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 says that it gives us the perfect things that we need to be able to do everything that pertains to life and godliness, 2 Peter 1:3, and so forth. And then I handed him the paper, and he took it, and he read it, and he came back, and we studied more, and 6 months later, I finally obeyed the gospel. That's persuasion. The persuasive side of how someone comes to faith in Jesus is like this. They hear something that's interesting, they ask questions, their questions are answered, they study, and they work through whatever difficulty they're having in their mind to understand what's going on in the Bible or something else. And I will face it, most people don't take 6 months to get there, and most people don't write a 17-page dossier on a single word in the Bible. But y'all have met me, and I have a problem with going a little overboard sometimes, right? So, that's persuasion. They sit down and they work through it. That's why Paul goes to the synagogue in the book of Acts and he persuades them. He studies with them. He goes and he talks about the Old Testament law, and he lays down all the different things different from the Old Testament law to the New Covenant, and he talks about how Jesus has fulfilled the law and so forth. That's one way. Another way is your son is sick, and you walk 18 miles to meet Jesus, and he says your son's going to be better, and you just believe it. And then you get home, and you realize your son is better, and you've now come in contact with the power of God. Now, you and I aren't going to have that same experience in the power of God as this man does. However, there's a lot of people who have come to faith because they read the book of John. I mean, that's the purpose of the book of John, right? John 21 says that the reason why he wrote the book was so that you could have faith. A lot of things were done by Jesus that weren't recorded in the book, but these things are written so that you can have faith. So there's these two types of people that become followers of Jesus and have faith in Jesus. And that is, one, who is persuaded, who works through the Scriptures and understands the Scriptures, and another person who comes in contact one way or the other with the power of God, and they say, you know what? I don't know all the specifics, but that's for me. That sounds like I need it. This past week, for instance, I had a person who said that she was an atheist when I first met her. She said something, and I responded with, I thought you were an atheist. She said, well, listening to you, I've kind of come to the realization that God is real. I didn't persuade her. We didn't have a Bible study at all. I just talked about some of the things in the Bible, and the power of God persuaded her, right? So those are the two different types. This man is the second type. In the New Testament, it often happened through miracles, but today it happens through the written Word of God. Now, I just want to make a real quick point. In verse 47, the man comes to Jesus and says, my son is ill, will you heal him? 48, he says, you've got to see a sign in order to become a Christian. You've got to see something. He said that to a lot of people, but in 48 he says, unless you see signs, you're not going to believe. That sounds pretty accusatory, I guess, on the part of Jesus, right? I mean, it sounds like he's attacking the man. He's saying, well, all you want to do is see some dog and pony show, and if you don't see it, then you won't obey the gospel. But Jesus did exactly what he told him to do, right? Jesus always does what we need. He may call us on our foolishness, but he always does what we need. And this man needed to see the power of God at work, and so Jesus does just that. All right, verse 49. The officials said to him, sir, come down before my child dies. And Jesus says, go, your son will live. God heals through the power of his word. Jesus doesn't have to go down. Turn to Romans chapter 10. Why does Jesus not have to go down to Capernaum? Because the power of God's word is powerful enough to do whatever it says. A lot of people ask, well, you believe that baptism is essential. What about the thief on the cross? Listen, we can go through all the arguments. The fact that the thief may have been baptized by John. The new covenant wasn't in power yet because the thief died before Jesus did, and the new covenant didn't come into power until Jesus had passed away. That's the book of Hebrews. But when the rubber meets the road, why was the thief on the cross saved outside of baptism? We don't have any reference of him ever being baptized. Here's the answer. Jesus said he was saved. Outside of all of the other things, Jesus said he was saved. So the power of God it trumps every other thing, right? All right, Romans 10, verse 17. So faith comes with hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Stay in Romans 10 because I want to get the next verse in just a second, but I want to read you this. Galatians 3, verse 1. Oh, foolish Galatians. The Galatians had a problem because they had been taught a different gospel now. They had been taught that you have to be circumcised to be a Christian, not just baptized and be a faithful believer in Jesus to be a Christian. Who has bewitched you? It was before your eyes that Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. Let me ask you this. Did you receive the Spirit by works of the law or by hearing of faith? So you are so foolish. Having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? He says it was before your eyes. You watched Jesus die on the cross. Well, hang on a second. Did all the Galatians watch Jesus die on the cross? I'm going to suggest that most of them didn't. Maybe one or two of them did. Maybe. But that passage is not necessarily speaking about you watched it happen, because the phrase, it was before your eyes, is the same type of phrase that comes from what I'm doing right now. You see, the role of a preacher is to take the book that you have in your hand and make it come to life, as it were, in one way or another, so that you can see it through your mind's eye, even if you don't see Jesus. Have y'all ever sat in a sermon where the preacher, I can remember, it was Michael Shepard in like 2010 maybe, preached on the crucifixion of the cross, and I felt like I was wearing a tunic with no shoes, standing about 5 feet from the edge of the cross when he got done. That's what he's talking about in Galatians 3. He says, before your eyes, it was preached to you. You know how I know? Because he says, did you receive the Spirit by works of the law or by hearing with faith? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Christ. The Galatians saw the crucifixion through what they heard. All right, now back to Romans 10. But I ask you, have they not heard? Indeed they have. For their voice has gone out into all the world, and their words are the ends of the world. The words to the ends of the world. You see, in John chapter 4, the word of Jesus heals the son. Doesn't have to go there. Doesn't have to be seen in person in order to happen. A lot of people say you have to have some sort of religious experience and you have to see God. And if you don't see an angel or you don't see God or you don't see some miraculous thing, then you'll never become a Christian. This man believed what Jesus said, and the word of Jesus was powerful enough to make it happen. Those Galatians heard what had happened to Jesus, and it was just as good as if they saw it. So now someone says, why have miracles ceased? Why do we not have the speaking in tongues and healing the dead and healing the sick and so forth? Because we have the ability to see it happen through the words that are on the text, or in my case, on the screen. Right? All right, so let's move on. Verse 50. The end of verse 50. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. And as he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he began to get better. And they said to him, yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him. The father knew that that was the hour that Jesus said to him, your son will live. And he himself believed, and all his household. This was now the second sign that Jesus did when he came from Judah to Galilee. All right, this man's faith is made up of two different elements. And I'm going to suggest that everyone's faith is made up of two different elements. Okay? An internal conviction and an external action. Biblical faith is an internal conviction and an external action. He that believes and is baptized will be saved, Mark 16. God so loved the world. God loved the world in this way, that he gave his son, that whoever believes will not perish but have eternal life. Biblical belief, biblical faith is an internal conviction and combined with an external action. Here's what happens. The man hears that Jesus is 18 miles away. He's willing to travel 18 miles. Why? Because he believes that Jesus can do it. Now, he thinks that Jesus might have to come with him, but at the very least, he believes that Jesus can do what he needs to be done. Okay? So he goes. And he has enough faith, he has enough internal conviction that when Jesus says, go, your son will be healed, he doesn't say, no, Jesus, that's not how it works. I got to see this happen. You got to come with me because I need to know all the specifics of what's about to go down. What does he say? Your son will be healed, and what does he say? Okay, and he starts walking. And he walks at least a day. Time-wise, they wouldn't have called it yesterday until it was after 6 a.m. the next morning, because Jews counted the days from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m., not from 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. So he wouldn't have called it yesterday until it's at least after 6 p.m. So let's just do the math here, okay? 1 p.m. to 6 a.m. is how many hours? That's 17 hours, right? Am I doing my math right? I'm a preacher, not a mathematician, but I think it's 17 hours. Let's see. Yeah, 17 hours. He walks 17 hours at least, probably more. He walks 17 hours with just the internal conviction. No. His walking is the external action, right? So faith, biblical faith, is what you believe in your heart and what you do because of it. All right? Now, I want to read one last verse, and then I'll offer the invitation. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. We walk by faith, not by sight. This man walked by faith. and his faith caused him to walk. A man by the name of Mark Driscoll, who's a very famous Bible teacher. He's not a member of the church, and he has some very troublesome doctrines at times. But he said it best when he talked about faith. He said this: faith is obedience to what you know. This guy had saving belief. Now, in the New Testament writers focus on different things. Have you ever thought about why there are 4 Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Why do we need 4 of them? Each one of them focuses on different things. The one that we're studying, John, focuses more on the miracles than on anything else. Matthew focuses more on the relationships than anything else. Luke focuses more on the physical than anything else. Mark just writes it as quickly and concisely as he possibly can and gets it out because he's got work to do, and he has already proven that he needs to get the work done. James focuses a lot on what you do because of what you believe. I mean, just read the book of James. He talks about you need to be doers of the word, not hearers only. But Paul talks a lot about the internal conviction, doesn't he? And that's led a lot of people to think that the book of James and the book of Romans, for instance, that James and John, and really Peter, James, and the Apostle Paul, Peter and James are on one side of you need to do it, and Paul's on the other side of no, you just need to believe. Well, biblical faith is an internal conviction with an external action. Why do they focus on different things? Because they're writing to different people about different things. But when it comes down to it, here's what the gospel says. It says you need to understand that Jesus has the ability to save you, that the word of Christ will give you faith. And then you need to do something because of it. You need to put your money where your mouth is, as it were. 1 Peter 3:21, when you're becoming a Christian, it says that your baptism is the question of a good conscience toward God. It's the inquiry. It's when we say, God, I want you to save me. And so I'm asking you to save me. We ask for our salvation, but we ask for our salvation through our submission, through our faithful understanding and penitence and confession and baptism. So if you need to do that this morning, we're going to stand. Gary's going to lead us in a song of encouragement. You can let us know if you need to do that. But let me say this. Now is the time when all of these people are hurting in the world that Christians need to step up and show the external action of our faith. We spent months inside just trying to take care of the internal conviction, and we were trying to worship as best we could, and man, it didn't seem like it was all there, and it seemed kind of weird. And listen, if you have never been led in prayer by yourself on a TV screen, you don't understand how weird it is to go through a pandemic as a preacher. I didn't know what to do. Like, do I pray? Because I've already technically prayed that prayer. But do I pray it again? Do I say it again? Or do I just let myself say it? It was so weird. Anyways, now's the time when we start showing our faith in an external action. Now's the time when we put boots on the ground and we start actually teaching people about who Jesus is, right? If you need to be baptized for the remission of your sins, or maybe you need to repent of sin publicly, we're going to stand and you can let us know. And let's go this week and let's actually show our faith to the people around us. All right, let's stand.